I'd like you to start by closing your eyes, because I'm going to ask you to remember something, and it will be much easier if you have your eyes closed. So with your eyes closed, try and remember the last time that you played sport or did any exercise of any description. So you might have run for a bus, that's absolutely fine. You might have just mucked around in the park, or you might have worked out really hard in the gym. And I want you to think about how you felt. How did your body feel? Did it ache a bit? Was it all a bit hard work? What was your brain telling you? Were you having the most fantastic time? Or was this all a bit taxing? Now I'd like you to open your eyes and tell me if it felt anything at all like that. Or this. And when you finished, is that what you did? Now that, as you probably know, is Jessica Ennis. And when that photograph was taken, she had just won the 800 metres at the end of the heptathlon in the Olympic Park. And she'd run that 800 metres in 2 minutes, 8 seconds, which is the most extraordinary athletic achievement. But unless you are talented, and there might well be some talented athletes in this room, but unless you are talented, that kind of performance is absolutely out of reach for most of us. So when we set about to help women and girls think about sport and exercise in a different way, we decided to look for some different role models. So here's one of our very different role models. This is Sam. Sam's a lot older than most of you in this room. Sam's 44. And when this picture was taken, she was about 3 months, having just completed her first park run, which is those organised 5k runs in the park. And Sam had taken 37.5 minutes to do her 5 kilometres, and she'd come last, and she was incredibly proud of that. But if you look at her face, if you look at her body, if you look at what she's doing, there is something there that is just that bit more familiar. And that's why when we set out to do our This Girl Can campaign, we decided that we were going to create a different imagery and a completely different way of talking and thinking about how women exercise and play sport. And this is why we needed to do that. One of the things we do at Sport England is we count the number of people who play sport and exercise. We ask 160,000 people every single year about their sport and exercise habits. And we've been doing that since 2005. And you can see on the chart behind me that the numbers have gone up a little bit since we started doing it, but the pink line is relentlessly below the blue line. And guess what? The pink line is the women. And that gender gap has stuck at around 2 million, and it's now at 1.75 million for all of that time. And it just will not shift. So what we wanted to do was try and work out why. And if you ask women and girls why they don't exercise, they give you one of two answers. They say, don't really have enough time, incredibly busy. Or they say, it's all a bit expensive really, gym memberships cost a fortune and can't afford a tennis racket. But actually, when you start to talk to them a bit more about why they don't, you get a very different answer. If you have a longer conversation, they start to say different things. They start to say things like, I think I might be a bit fat for this. I'm not fit. When I go to the gym, it's stuffed full of fit people. Have you seen the clothes? Have you seen what you have to wear? And what if I don't know how to do it? What if I make a fool of myself? I don't know about you, but I look at a treadmill and I don't think, how far and fast am I going to run on this? I think, what do I do if I fall off? And most of us have those kind of things, that kind of dialogue running in our minds. Because the other really interesting thing that survey told us was that 75% of women would really like to do more, and if they were doing nothing, they'd like to start. So what we're describing as this fear of judgment was really, really getting in the way. So what we created for the campaign was a manifesto. Now we never published this, and it only crops up when I talk to events like this, but I wanted you to see that manifesto because it underlies everything that we're trying to do. And that's a statement that women come in all shapes and sizes and all levels of ability. And it really doesn't matter if you're a bit rubbish at sport or if you're an expert. Because remember, most of us are a bit rubbish. The talented is that really small bit at the top, but that's fine. The point is that you're a woman and you're doing something. And so the This Girl Can campaign is all about celebrating that. That whatever you choose to do, and whyever you choose to do it, that's absolutely fine. Now you thought that I was here to talk about sport. So I just thought I'd put an equation up there, because there is a comparison here with maths that I'd like you to think about. People who love sport can't imagine not loving it. And they will say things to you like, you've just got to find the sport you like. And you'll pick up fencing one day and you'll think, this is the most marvellous thing I've ever done, and you'll want to do it for the rest of your life. And I spend a lot of the very time with all the very sporty people I work with saying, well, that might work for you, but it's not necessarily going to work for everybody. So let's try and compare it to maths. I need to be able to add up my checkbook in the days when we had a checkbook and know how much my shopping cost and occasionally read a balance sheet. It doesn't mean I'm going to fall in love with maths and look at that and understand what it means. That's intimidating. It's not much fun if you don't like maths. And actually that is how a lot of people feel like about sport. And they have a whole range of motivations for wanting to do it. They might just want to be a bit fitter. It might be how they spend time with their friends. They might want to raise money for charity. They might want to be able to do up that belt in the morning. All of that is absolutely fine. You do not have to love it. And that's what the campaign is celebrating. So this is Grace. Grace is 20. She's a theatre art student in London. And this is Grace's real bike. And she stuck a flower on the front of that bike because she didn't want anybody to think that she was a middle-aged man in lycra, or indeed a young fit woman in lycra who was going to zoom down the inside lane. And she is quite slow. We have a fantastic piece of film of her coming up a hill really quite slowly. But her message is a really powerful one. Big slow is fine, and it's an awful lot better than being on the sofa. This is Ashley, our swimmer, and Ashley actually said this. Ashley had a bad accident, and a part of her rehabilitation was swimming. And she said, when we found her, and we did just find her in a swimming pool, because that's how we found these women and girls. We didn't have models, actresses, anything like that. We went and talked to people where they were exercising. And Ashley said, I swim because when I swim, I love my body. I can feel it saying thank you to me. And it's a great thing, actually, for all the men in the room who must sit there with all of us women and hear us say, God, I hate my thighs. And have you seen these arms? And I'm having to breathe in today. And all that stuff that we say, and we talk about hating our bodies all the time. And the message here that actually, sometimes when you exercise your body, you do because it feels good. And it's part of loving your body. There's no line on this one because this is actually taken from one of the supporting videos that we did for the campaign. And there is a TV ad that you can download online if you just tap in This Girl Can. But this is a video story of Kelly. Kelly is a mum with 3 small children, and she's a single mum and she works. And it is really hard for her to find time to go to the gym. So Kelly exercises in her own front room. And that's her youngest baby, and that's Shania. And she uses Shania as a weight. So Kelly lies back, and you can see it if you go onto the This Girl Can website, and she lifts her up, down. And now the baby goes up, down, whenever she sees the video. But she's giving her kids a really important message, that it's absolutely fine to exercise wherever you can, and she's doing it because it makes her feel good. And Kelly really celebrates that, which is fantastic. So when we created this campaign, I really, really hoped that we might be onto something, because we spent a lot of government money on this campaign, so we had to get it right. And one of the things that told me that we might be getting it right was when we did the testing. And we did proper focus groups where women sat in groups and we showed them the material. We sat behind a glass praying they would like it. And actually the thing that really struck me was the number of women who said, I thought I was the only one who felt like this. I thought I was the only one that worried. I thought I was the only one that had that judgment dialogue in my head the whole time. And that sparked all sorts of conversations and a lot of emotion. So when we produced the campaign and put it out there in the public, we really hoped it would connect. And it did. We've had already, and it was running for a 10-week period at the beginning of the year, over 30 million views of the ad on YouTube and Facebook. And that doesn't count all the people who looked at it through the BBC and all the embedded websites where it was. It trended at number 2 on Twitter, it trended on Google Hot Trends. I didn't even know what they were, I'm so honoured, but everybody put it in front of me and said this is really exciting and really important. So we knew that we tapped into something that mattered. And it wasn't just in England. I run Sport England. My job is to persuade people to exercise and play sport in England. The purple bits on that map behind me are the countries in the world where this was either covered or discussed on social media. So 3 days after the campaign launched, I found myself rung up by the Australian BBC to talk about judgment and barriers and how this girl can connected there. This campaign was big in Brazil. Who knew Brazilian women worried about judgment? Have you seen the photographs? Brazilian, they really don't need to worry. But the fact that it connected really across the world, and the slogans, which if you think about them are uniquely British, they got translated into Spanish and French and picked up really, really broadly. So speaking specifically to the women in the audience, if anybody tells you you can't, whether that's a man, whether that's a woman, whether that's something in your own head, the message I'd just like to leave with you about sport and exercise is you absolutely can. And there are women around the world now saying, we can. And that can only be a good thing. Thank you very much.